video I make you clear that there are many books on aerodynamics, but the basic concept is which I am giving you in my videos. This is the last video of aerodynamics, and you will find everything common in all this text, all the text given by the EASA module. So now I'm going to start the shape which is responsible for the aerodynamics. Now, aerofoils. An aerofoil is technically defined as any surface such as an airplane, aileron, elevator, rudder, or being designed to obtain reaction from the air through which it moves. An airfoil section in cross section of an airfoil which can be drawn as a silhouette as illustrated in this figure. The wing of an airplane were sawed through from the leading edge to the trailing edge. The side view of the section through the wing at the point would be its aerofoil section. An airfoil profile is merely the outline of or shape of an airfoil section. It is common practice among aircraft people to use the word airfoil when airfoil section or perhaps airfoil profile is meant. The previous discussion of streamline flow, laminar flow, turbulence, and the reaction of force between the airstream and an object in its path is essential to any explanation of airfoils. A flat plate perpendicular to an airstream obtains reactions from the air through which it moves, but it is not useful as an airfoil because there is no lift and turbulence is excessive. When an airfoil is at an acute angle in bracket less than a right angle to the airstream, it is an airfoil because there is lift. The flat plate is not an efficient airfoil, however, because of the excessive resistance resulting from the turbulence that accompanies the disturbed airflow. Likewise, a curved plate is not an efficient airfoil because of turbulence at low angle of attack. As already mentioned, an efficient airfoil must have both curvature and thickness. Curvature directs the airflow downward and reduces the turbulence at the leading edge when the airfoil is at a high angle of attack. Thickness eliminates the turbulence occurring behind the leading edge of the simple curved plate and provides for the internal bracing required in modern airplane wings. Of course, the wing could be extremely braced, but this would create turbulence and cause drag. Now refer this figure. It will be observed that the particles of air flow over and until the airflow and to accordance with Bernoulli's principle, the pressure decreases and the speed of the airflow increases. This figure is given earlier. The airflow at the left in the figure represent the relative wind. Technically speaking, the relative wind is usually determined from measurements made at such a distance from the body that the disturbing effect of the body upon the air is negligible. In other words, the relative wind refers to the velocity of the air before it strikes the leading edge of the airfoil and divides the flow around it. In calm, still air, the direction of the relative wind is opposite to the flight path of the airplane with reference to the ground. When the wind blows, the path of the airplane referred to the ground usually is not the same as the path referred to the moving air. The aerodynamic forces on the airplane are always considered as a function of the relative wind and not of the ground wind. Now, airfoil profiles. Now, the figure which I have given earlier illustrates 5 airfoil profiles of different shapes together with their chords. A chord may be defined as the reference line from which the upper and lower contours of an airfoil are measured. A chord is also defined as a straight line directly across an airfoil from the leading edge to the trailing edge. The figure in which Profile A has a double convex shape. The chord is simply the straight line from the leading edge to the trailing edge. In profile B has a convex upper curvature and a concave lower curvature. The chord is the straight line connecting the imaginary perpendicular erected at the leading and trailing edge. Profile C has a flat lower surface and the chord is the straight line connecting the leading and trailing edges. Profile D resembles profile B, and again the chord is the straight line connecting imaginary perpendicular erected at the leading and trailing edges. Profile E is designed for supersonic flight and is almost symmetrical. Now, factors affecting airfoils in flight. The angle of attack is the acute angle between a reference line in a body and the line of the relative wind direction will be shown in this figure. The angle of attack can be defined more simply as the acute angle between the chord of an airfoil and the relative wind. In the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Aeronautical Dictionary, the definition of angle of attack is the angle at which a body such as an airfoil or fuselage or a system of bodies such as helicopter rotor meets a flow ordinarily measured between a reference line in the body and a line in the direction of the flow or in the direction of movement of the body. The airfoil profile in figure which I have given has a flat lower surface like C in figure earlier which I have given. Hence its chord is simply the straight line along its lower surface. The angle of attack is the acute angle between the lower surface of the airfoil and the line parallel to the direction of the relative wind. Now I am giving you another figure which shows the force acting on an airfoil in an airstream. The relative wind, angle of attack, lift, drag, resultant and CP are emphasized. The point at which the aerodynamic forces may be considered concentrated is the CP. It is assumed to be on the chord. From the CP are drawn vectors arrow of magnitude and direction representing the lift, drag and resultant force. The location of the CP and the direction in which the resultant will point depend upon the center of the airfoil section and the angle of attack. The CP can be located for each angle of attack by installing parallel rows of small static pressure tubes at right angles to the leading edge of a wing flush with the upper and lower surfaces as illustrated in this figure. These tubes are connected by means of rubber tubing is manometers located outside the experimental chamber of the wind tunnel in the case of a model test, or 2 manometers located in the cockpit of the airplane in a flight test. For any angle of attack, manometer readings indicates the pressure at each point where there is a static pressure T. These readings can be used to develop diagrams as shown in the figure I am giving you, which illustrates the pressure distribution on a certain airfoil surface at +5, +10 and +20 degree angle of attack. Solid black areas represent regions of positive pressure and the gray area represent region of negative pressure. When these diagrams were prepared, the airfoil profiles were drawn first and then points were drawn on the profile that represents the inlets for the manometer tubes at each point. The corresponding manometer reading was represented by line drawn to scale. Pressures below the normal atmospheric pressure were represented by arrows away from the airfoil, and pressures above The normal atmospheric scale were represented by arrows towards the airfoil. It was found that over most of the usual flight and range of angles of attack, the relatively low pressure above the airfoil constituted from 60 to 80% of the lifting force. Now in this figure which I had given, among other things that at an angle of -5 degree there is an area of positive pressure that acts down on the leading edge, while the remaining distribution of pressure is such that the resultant for the upper and lower surface produce a download on the front section of the wing and an upload on the rear of the wing. The middle diagram in this illustrating the pressure distribution at an angle of attack of +10 degree shows that the negative pressure region is greater than the positive pressure region in accordance with the principles already discussed. The lower diagram illustrates the pressure distribution at an angle of attack of +20 degrees shows that both the positive and negative pressure areas have increased and that there is an area of negative pressure both above and below the wing at the trailing edge. Certain general conclusion can be drawn from a study of this figure. First, the pressure is not uniformly distributed either above or below the airfoil. Second, the greatest pressure, both positive and negative, are near the leading edge. Third, the pressures, both positive and negative, generally decreases towards the trailing edge. Regions of different pressures tends to merge with one another. At the leading edge, there is almost impossible because the direction of flow is to the rear. If particles of air try to reverse their course and mix with particles going in another direction, they would be opposed by rushing multitudes of other air particles sweeping above and below the airfoil. Near the trailing edge, most particles of air are rushing to the rear as they can mix with one another at the trailing edge without much opposition. The result is that there is sometimes no difference between the pressure above and below the trailing edge, and there is no lift at this point. Now I am giving you a figure which shows the airflow about a certain airfoil from a 4-degree angle of attack to and including a 20-degree angle of attack. At the 4-degree angle of attack, the airflow is described as streamlined and there is no appreciable turbulence. At angles of 8 and 10, the streamlines above the leading edge begin to crowd together more than they did at a lower angle of attack. This causes an increase of velocity above the upper surface and consequently a reduction of pressure. Hence, lift is increasing at each successive increase of the angle of attack. The point at which the airflow breaks away from the upper surfaces move forward, and that increases the amount of burbling or turbulence. We have already seen that where burbling occurs on the surface, the pressure cannot drop below atmospheric, and the failure to have a region of pressure differential destroys lift in that region. At a very high angle of attack, burbling is so excessive that the drag may be even greater than the lift. Now, center of pressure travel. We have previously said that the CP is on the chord of an airfoil, and that is location and the direction in which the resultant will point depend upon the shape of the airfoil section and the angle at which it is set to the airstream throughout most of the flight range, that is at the usual attack increases and backward as the angle of attack decreases. The most forward position is usually about 3/10 of the chord back from the leading edge for most airfoil sections, though this is by no means an failure statement. If the airplane wing has a chord of 63 inches, that is in bracket 160 centimeter, for example, the most forward position of the CP may be 0.3 into 63 or 18.9 inches, that is in bracket 48 centimeter behind the leading edge. The farthest position to the rear that the CP may reach on some airfoil section is 4/10 of the chord back from the leading edge. If the chord is 63 inch long, for example, the CP in the case may be 0.4 into 63 or 25.2 inches, that is 64 centimeter behind the leading edge. Therefore, in the example mentioned, the CP at the usual angles of attack will be somewhere between 18.9 and 25.2 inches behind the leading edge of the chord. Notice carefully that we have said that these may be positions at the usual angles of attack. The CP can still travel forward or backward from these usual positions. For example, at a low angle of attack, the CP may run off the trailing edge and disappear because there is no more lift. Now I am giving you a figure which shows the travel of the CP along the chord at various angle of attack, as well as changes in the magnitude, direction and location of the resultant. In actual flight, there is a different airspeed for different angles of attack. There is a different airspeed for different angle attack, but in wind tunnel test, the velocity of the airstream can be constant while the angle of attack changes. As in the case in figure which I have given you, at small angles of attack shown at top of this figure, the CP is quite a distance from the leading edge. The resultant is comparatively small and it points upwards and to the rear of the vertical. At medium angles of attack, as it given center of this figure, the CP has moved towards the leading edge. The resultant is greater and the direction more nearly approaches right angles to the chord. At high angles of attack, the bottom figure of the figure, the CP has moved to the farthest forward position and the resultant is still greater. Before processing further in the discussion in this figure, it is necessary to introduce some new terms. The critical angle of attack is the angle of attack at which the flow about an airfoil change abruptly as shown by corresponding abrupt changes in the lift and drag. We have already shown that bubble is breakdown of streamline or flow about a body. The bubble point is the angle of attack at which the streamline flow about a body begins and breakdown. In figure this which I had given, this is discussion of the figure only. So the high angles of attack represents tailed by C approach the bubble point. The CP either remains in the same position or move back slightly. The resultant decreases in magnitude and its departure from the vertical towards the rear becomes greater. The CP behaves differently on a flat plate. There is O moves backward at an angle of attack increases and forward as it decreases. It is possible to design an airfoil section that will behave in this manner, and it is well worth considering. For example, if a rising column of an air strike the leading edge of an airplane wing with an airfoil section of this type, the angle of attack is increased. That increases the CP to move to the rear. Therefore, the lift is on the rear of the wing where it raises the wing and decreases the angle of attack, which was unexpected, raised by the column of air. This type of airfoil section is described as stable because forces are developed they tend to restore the airfoil to its original state. The question is naturally arises as to the reason for not using airfoil section having the CP travel characteristic of a flat plate, and full explanation will be given later. For the present, it is sufficient to say that the characteristic of stability produced by the direction of the CP travel is less important than certain other features. Hence, more airfoil sections are designed so that the CP travels forward as the angle of attack increases, and described as unstable because after the disturbance the forces tend to move the airfoil farther away from the original state. One of the reasons for studying CP travel is that C is the point at which the aerodynamic forces that can be considered to be concentrated, hence the airplane design must make provisions for the CP travel by preparing wing structure that will meet any stress imposed upon pilot. Technicians and inspectors cannot change the design, but they can perform their duties better if they know the characteristics and limitation of the airplane. Area and lift. It has already been explained that the lift force depends upon the angle of attack. Also, our discussion of airfoil has demonstrated the fact that the shape of the airfoil section affects the amount of lift obtained from any airfoil. For example, we found that an airfoil section approaching a teardrop shape is better than either a flat plate or a curved plate. Still, another factor on the total lift of an airfoil is the area of the surface exposed to the airstream. If the area is small, the region of pressure differential is small, and then there is a little lift. On the other hand, if the area is great, the region of pressure differential is great and there is a large amount of lift. Later in this text, we shall explain why more lift can be obtained from a long narrow wing than from one which is the wing more closely approaches the length, or in brackets span. But for the present, it is sufficient to remember one simple statement: lift varies directly as the area, other factors being equal. In practice, the areas of wings are measured in square feet. Earlier in this text, it was shown that if a person blew it into a spool against a card held by a pin at the opposite end of the spool, the harder the person blew, the more lightly the card adhered to the spool. This is in accordance with Bernoulli's principle, which states that as the velocity of the air increases, the pressure decreases. We have seen that the same principle applies to the airflow around an airfoil. If the air flows slowly around the airfoil, a certain amount of lift is generated. If the velocity of the airstream increases, the pressure differential increases and the lift increases. It would be easy to remember that lift varies directly as the air velocity, but this would not be correct. Actually, the lift varies as the square of the velocity. When we use the word velocity in this sense, we mean the airspeed with respect to the airfoil. Remember that two conditions are essential for lift: relative motion and pressure differential. It does not matter whether a stream of air is blowing against a flat plate or the flat plate moves through still air. In either case, there is relative motion. These facts are repeated because they are so very simple that they are easily overlooked, and yet they are so important that no discussion of the theory of flight or aerodynamics can overlook them even for a moment. Now, air density and lift. We have seen that lift depends upon the shape of the airfoil, the angle of attack, the area of the surface exposed to the airstream, and the square of the airspeed. One more factor of lift remains the air density. On hot days, the density of the air is less than on cold days. On wet days, the density is less than on dry days. Dry days also density decreases with altitude. When the density is low, the lift will also be comparatively lower. If an airplane flies at a certain angle of attack at sea level and then flies at the same angle of attack at a higher altitude where density is less, the airplane must be flown faster. On hot days, when the density is less, the airplane must be flown faster for the same angle of attack than on cold days where the density is greater. Wet days, the density is less, hence the airplane must be flown faster for the same angle of attack than on dry days. Therefore, greater airspeed is required for a particular airplane when the density is lower. To express the same idea in different words, the airspeed must increase as the density decreases in order to maintain the airplane at the same angle of attack in level flight. Angle of maximum lift and minimum speed. Beginning with small angle of attack, the lift increases as the angle of attack increases until an angle of attack is reached where the lift has a maximum value. The angle corresponds to the bubble point and is the angle of attack at which the streamline flow begins to break down over the upper surface of the wing and bubbling begins at the trailing edge. This angle of attack is called the stalling angle. At angles greater than the angle of maximum lift, the lift decreases rapidly and the drag increases rapidly. For each angle of attack, there is a corresponding airspeed, assuming that other conditions such as wing area and air density remain constant. As the angle of attack increases, this airspeed decreases. Hence, the least possible airspeed exists at the angle of a maximum lift in brackets stalling angle. Therefore, we can say that another name for the angle of maximum lift is the angle of minimum speed. We also point out that the stalling speed of an airplane is the minimum speed at which the wing will maintain lift under a certain set of conditions. I am giving you one figure which illustrates the importance of airspeed. If the pilot is not careful to maintain adequate airspeed, there is a danger of stall. In this figure, the increased airspeed is shown by means of a wind shock. The reason for stalling at low airspeed, even though an airplane is held in the horizontal position, can be understood as the wing is developing sufficient lift. Can be understood by examining the illustrations in the figure which I am giving you. As long as the wing is developing sufficient lift is to hold level flight, there will be no stall. If the speed is reduced until the total lift is less than the weight of the airplane will begin to descend. This causes the angle of attack to increase if the airplane is held in horizontal position. If the angle of attack does not become as great as the stalling angle, the wing will not stall and the airplane will mass, as shown in the B of the figure given earlier. In the figure, the wing is actually stalling. When the wing completely stalls, the nose of the airplane will drop rapidly. The airspeed will increase and the airplane will be recovered from the stall. When the airplane approaches the ground to land, the air between the wing and the ground is slightly compressed before it can flow backward under the trailing edge of the wing. This is especially true in the case of low wing monoplanes, but less true in the case of mid-wing and high-wing monoplanes. Compression increases air density and decreases the velocity. The effect of the increased density and the air reaction between the wing and the ground cause the airplane to float for a time before setting to the ground. This condition is called ground effect. The nature of ground effect depends upon the design of the wing, and so it is important for the pilot to know the design specification relative to stalling and landing speeds. This information is provided in the airplane flight manual approved by the Federal Aviation Administration, that is FAA. Lift and weight. The forces acting on the airplane in flight are lift, weight, drag and thrust. The weight acts vertically downward from the center of gravity, that is CG, of the airplane. The lift acts in the direction perpendicular to the direction of the relative wind from the CP in straight and level flight. The lift and weight must be equal. When the airplane is flying at a constant speed, the thrust must equal to the drag. Thrust, of course, is provided by the engine and propeller or by high velocity gases ejected from the tailpipe of a jet engine. Now, figure which I am giving you illustrates the forces acting on an airplane in straight and level flight at a constant speed. In this case, all the forces are in balance. Now, drag and thrust. The thrust line is an imaginary line passing through the center of the propeller hub perpendicular to the plane of the propeller rotation, as illustrated in the figure I had given. In the case of a jet-propelled airplane, the thrust line is parallel to the path of the ejected gases from the jet engine. Propeller thrust is technically defined as the component of the total air forces of on the propeller that is parallel to the direction of advance. In simple terms, thrust merely the force that drives the airplane forward. In propeller driven airplane, thrust acts from the hub of the propeller along the thrust line. Thrust is also defined as the forward directed pushing or pulling force developed by an aircraft engine. This includes reciprocating engines, turbojet engine, turboprop engines or rocket engines. Drag is generated terms is the force which opposes the forward motion of the airplane. Specifically, drag is at a retarding force acting upon a body in motion through a fluid parallel to the direction of motion of the body. Previously, when we discussed drag, we referred to induced drag and parasite drag. The total drag of the airplane includes the wing drag and a number of other forms of drag, including that caused by the fuselage, the landing gear and other parts of the airplane. The total of the airplane is in opposite to thrust, as illustrated in the figure which I have given. Assuming that the airplane is flying straight and level in calm air, the drag acts parallel to the direction of the relative wind. As long as thrust and drag are equal, the airplane flies at a constant speed. If the engine power is reduced, the thrust is decreased and the speed of the airplane is reduced. If the thrust is lower than the drag, the speed of the airplane becomes less and less until it intensely is lower than the speed required to maintain level flight, and the airplane will descend. On the other hand, if the power of the energy is increased, the thrust is increased and the airplane gains speed, or in technical terms, accelerates. When the airplane accelerates, the drag increases until they eventually equals the thrust. Thus, the airplane flies at a constant speed. These facts can be summarized by saying that in straight and level flight at a constant speed, the lift and weight are equal and the thrust and drag are equal. These four forces, lift, weight, thrust and drag, are then in balance. In technical language, the sum of the components of the forces acting on an airplane in straight and level flight at a constant velocity equals 0. Now, fineness ratio. Either in this chapter, the effects of a skin friction and turbulence were discussed. A design features of an airplane which affects skin friction and turbulence is called the fineness ratio of the airfoil. Fineness ratio is the ratio of the chord of the airfoil to its thickness. A thick wing will therefore have a low fineness ratio and a thin wing will have high fineness ratio. A wing with a low fineness ratio will cause more turbulence than a wing with a high fineness ratio, whereas a wing with a low fineness ratio will produce less skin friction than a wing with a high fineness ratio. In the design of an airfoil, engineer must compromise and develop a profile that will keep both turbulence and skin friction to a minimum in keeping with the overall performance requirement of the aircraft. Now, high-speed flight. Thus far, we have discussed the airflow and aerodynamics principle with respect to subsonic airspeed only. The behavior of an airfoil under subsonic conditions is easily predictable. However, when we consider operations at transonic and supersonic speed, we find the reaction of an airfoil altogether different from that which it is found at subsonic speeds. The result for this is the reaction of the air itself. When discussing discussing high speed aerodynamics, we constantly refer to the speed of sound. This can be understood when we consider that great changes take place in the forces caused by the air flowing over an aircraft as the aircraft approaches the speed of sound. We must remember that sound waves are pressure changes and that an aircraft in flight produces pressure changes. Now, speed of sound. The speed at which sound travels and air under standard sea level condition is 1116 feet per second, that is in bracket 344.24 meter per second or 761 mile per hour or 661 knot. The speed of sound is not affected by a change in atmospheric pressure because the density also changes. However, a change in the temperature of the atmosphere changes the density without appreciably affecting the pressure, hence the speed of sound changes with a change in temperature. The speed of sound can be calculated with the equation C equals to 49.022 root over capital T, where I have given C. Instead of that, there is a A, where A equals to speed of sound feet per second and capital T equals to absolute temperature, which is in degree Fahrenheit. Remember that absolute temperature in degrees is the same as degree Rankine, where 0 degree is minus 460 degree Fahrenheit. For example, 35 degree Fahrenheit is equal to 35 plus 460 or 495 degree Rankine. The temperature of the air decreases with an increase in altitude up to an altitude of about 37,000 feet on bracket 11,280 meter, and it is then constant to an altitude of more than 1 lakh feet. Then constant to an 1 lakh feet, that is in bracket 30,488 meter. Therefore, the speed of sound decreases with altitude to about 37,000 feet and then remains constant to more than 1 lakh feet. For example, at 30,000 feet, that is in bracket 9,146.34 meter, the temperature of standard air is minus 48 degree Fahrenheit or in bracket minus 44.44 degree centigrade, and the speed of sound is 995 feet per second, that is in bracket 303.35 meter or 589 knots. Now Mach number. Because of the relationship between the effect of the air forces at high speed and the speed of sound, and because of the speed of sound varies with altitude, it is the ratio of the speed of the aircraft to the speed of sound that is important rather than the speed of the aircraft with respect to the air. The ratio, called the Mach number, is the true airspeed of the aircraft divided by the speed of sound in the air through which the aircraft is flying at the time. Thus Mach 0.5 at sea level under standard condition is 558 feet per second, or in bracket 170 meter per second. However, Mach 0.5 at 30,000 feet is only 497 feet per second, or in bracket 151.52 meter per second or 294 knot. Types of high speed flight. The speed of air flowing over a particular part of the aircraft is called the local speed. The local speed may be higher than the speed of the aircraft. For example, the speed of the air across the upper portion of the wing. If the local speed is everywhere less than the speed of sound, the speed of the aircraft is referred to as subsonic. If all local speeds are greater than the speed of sound, the aircraft speed is supersonic. The speed at which some local speeds are less than the speed of sound and some that are greater than the speed of sound is called transonic. Now, subsonic flight. At speed less than 300 miles per hour, the airflow around the aircraft behaves as though the air were incompressible. Pressure disturbances or pressure pulses are formed ahead of the parts of the aircraft, such as the leading edge of the wing. These pressure pulses travel through the air at the speed of sound and in effect serve as a warning to the air of the approach of the wing. As a result of the warning, the air begins to move out of the wing. As the speed increases, the time between the warning of the approach of the wing and the arrival of the wing decreases. Because the time between the warning received by the air and the arrival of the wing is dependent upon the difference between the speed of the aircraft and the speed of the sound. At speeds above 300 miles per hour, the fact that air is compressible becomes a factor. The lift coefficient increases slightly with increasing speed, while the drag coefficient is relatively unaffected. This increase in the lift coefficient continues until the speed of the aircraft is such that the local speed across the upper portion of the wing reaches Mach 1. When the local speed has reached Mach 1, the aircraft speed is at the critical Mach number. This speed varies the airfoil shape and even the angle of attack, but it is usually Mach 0.7 and 0.8. At the critical Mach number, a disturbance referred to as a shock wave takes place in the airflow over the wing. When this occurs, there is a great reduction in lift and a still greater increases a drag. At airspeed where the air ceases to act as an incompressible fluid and begins to behave as a compressible fluid, conditions known as compressibility effects occur. There are the formation of shock waves in the area where the local speed reaches Mach 1 or greater. Compressibility effects are reduced on subsonic aircraft by the installation of vortex generators on flight surfaces where airspeeds are likely to exceed the speed of sound. Vortex generators are discussed in the coming video. Now, what is transonic flight? During transonic flight, a shock wave forms on both the top and the bottom surface of the wing. The magnitude and location of these shock waves are constantly changing, and the present time there appears to be no theory to predict their changes accurately. The forces and turbulence that accompany transonic flight may cause the pilot to lose control, especially if the airplane is not designed to operate under transonic conditions. When the speed becomes supersonic, the shock waves move back and become attached to the trailing edge of the wing. When this takes place, controls and these conditions becomes predictable and orderly again. Now, supersonic flight. When a wing is moving at a speed greater than the speed of sound, there can be no warning pressure changes because the wing is traveling faster than the pressure changes can travel. Thus, the sudden arrival of the aircraft finds the air stationary and the movement necessary to airflow the aircraft to pass takes place violently, form or another shock waves. This shock wave forms ahead of the leading edge of the wing, and as speed increases, it moves closer to the leading edge. If the leading edge is sharp, the shock wave becomes attached as shown in this figure. The shock waves formed at supersonic speeds are not imaginary or theoretical, and intuitively arranged high-speed wind tunnel, they can be photographed. Now, in this figure, which I am giving you, is an unretouched photograph showing shock waves formed on a wind tunnel model at low supersonic speed. The nature of supersonic flight can be illustrated by the passage of a boat through water. If the boat is moving slowly, a bow wave will move ahead of the prow as shown in the figure which I am giving you in A of it. When the speed of the boat is increased sufficiently, the water does not have time to form the bow wave ahead of the prow, and the prow cuts directly into the still water. This is shown in the figure B of this figure. Now, shapes for high-speed flight. Because of the complex nature of the supersonic phenomena, aircraft and spacecraft designers have been required to resort to design with at scene rather unconventional. Many of these designs are decided inferior to the more familiar aircraft forms at subsonic flight speed. When we consider the airflow across a wing, it becomes obvious that as a wing becomes thicker, the increase of the local speed across the curved areas will become greater. If we wish to obtain an increase in critical Mach number, we must utilize wings as thin as possible. The present difficulties, however, because a very thin wing does not have great strength, and also because its lift is poor at these speeds. Another method for increasing the critical Mach number is to sweep back the wing. This will improve the critical Mach number, but it will also present a problem in stability. If an aircraft with a pronounced sweepback changes heading as a result of rudder movement of a disturbances in the air, the wing that moves forward will have much greater lift than the other wing, and the airplane will have a tendency to roll. At supersonic speed and higher, the advantage of the sweep back wing begins to decrease at a Mach 2. The straight wing is superior. Another method for increasing the critical Mach number is to reduce the aspect ratio. This is not completely satisfactory solution because a low aspect ratio adversely affects flight at low speed. Now, hypersonic flight. When the speed of an aircraft or spacecraft is 5 times the speed of sound or greater, the speed is said to be hypersonic. Practical experience has been gained by engineers working in the space program under the direction of National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or in bracket NASA, with the result that certain hypersonic vehicles are now practical and others will be developed. The principal hindrance to hypersonic flight is the extreme temperature generated by air friction at hypersonic speed. New materials and cooling methods are being developed to overcome this problem. The high velocity test of a reusable space shuttle vehicle model is shown in this figure. This vehicle will enter the Earth's atmosphere at hypersonic speed after have delivered its load to an orbiting space station. This model, which I have shown in the figure, is being tested in a Mars 20 helium tunnel at NASA Langley Research Center, Hampton, Virginia. The configuration developed by the NASA NAS Manned Spacecraft Center is being tested at a 20-degree angle of attack at simulated Mach 20 re-entry speed. Bow shock patterns from the nose and fixed straight wing are made visible by exciting the helium flow with a high energy electron wave. Now I am giving you some review questions in this chapter, which includes all those 2 videos earlier I have given on aerodynamics. Also,